A carbon pricing policy charges for the carbon content of fossil fuels or the emissions coming from fossil fuels. So the idea is to raise the price according to the carbon content, and then that will promote a wide variety of behavioural responses across the economy to reduce the use of fossil fuels, particularly carbon-intensive fuels. So it'll promote shifting to cleaner fuels, less carbon-intensive fuels. The higher, as carbon pricing is passed forward in higher fossil fuel prices and electricity prices, that will promote shifting towards more energy efficient technologies, encourage people to cut back on their use of vehicles a bit. So it's regarded as the most effective and efficient way to reduce an economy's carbon emissions, much better than a regulatory approach where you're trying to improve energy efficiency and, say, of buildings and vehicles, a patchwork of regulations. It's much better to have one instrument that raises the price of carbon-intensive fuels. So it's getting at the carbon emissions, which are by far and away the most important greenhouse gas, and then from an administrative perspective, the most practical to price at the moment. Because raising the price, if you want to reduce use of something, the most effective way is to raise its price rather than regulate. For example, if you want to reduce the use of road fuels, the best way is to raise their price. It'll encourage people to drive their vehicles less and to switch to more fuel-efficient vehicles. So you promote all of the potential responses for reducing road fuel use, whereas if you try and regulate, require more fuel-efficient vehicles, that it does save you some fuel, but it doesn't, for example, encourage people to drive their vehicles less. Well, I think given that businesses can see that carbon mitigation is coming, it's coming down the road, they want some certainty over the sorts of policies that will be in place. It's not very helpful for businesses to have a lot of uncertainty about the future policy environment. And we hear that that they want a clear price signal, so then they can decide, well, how much should they shift their investment towards low emission technologies. They don't like it when there's a lot of uncertainty over the emissions price, as you can get in an emissions trading system, which fixes the quantity of emissions but allows the price of emissions to vary a lot. They prefer more certainty over the future emissions price to help them better make their investment decisions. Well, we think it makes more sense to have a flexible regime where ideally countries would agree to some minimum level of carbon price, but countries would have the flexibility to set a higher price if they wanted to. One reason they might want to is because the revenues from carbon pricing are provide an important fiscal benefit. Maybe another reason is that it helps them reduce use of coal and produces co-benefits in terms of less deaths from local air pollution. Or more generally, it's just easier for some countries to price carbon more aggressively than in others. So we don't want to hold those countries back. So